Wow, with the move on these high yield ETFs, we're going to take a look at a few of them just to see where they're going. And I want to compare the high yield ETF with YieldMax versus the underlying. Hello, my friends, this is Legend. So, YieldMax ETFs seem to be moving up quite nicely and following more closely with that underlying for each of those high yield ETFs. And I'm talking about the ones with YieldMax. That's right, YieldMax. And we're looking at NVDY right here. And look at this. This thing has just been moving up. And if we compare that to NVIDIA, and here is NVIDIA, right? NVDA. Look at this. We are moving up. Just for an example, on today, we moved up 4.39%. And NVIDIA, which is the YieldMax high yield ETF, it moved up 3.34. So we are capturing more of that upside movement on these high yield ETFs, which that was not the case a while back, right? We would get capped out pretty quick if this thing popped up. And another example is AMDY. You can see here, AMDY has just been on a nice little rocket ship, right? And if we take a look at AMD, right here is AMD. Look how similar the two charts are. Very similar. So when we get a huge pop up like we do here on AMD, there's a pretty good size candle right there. And that was a move up of 11.44%. Now, what was that move up on AMDY? Well, here we are. Look at that candle right there. And that percentage move up was 9.49. Now, of course, we're not going to capture every bit of it, but that's a whole lot more than we used to capture. Honestly, whenever we would have a pop up like 11%, we would only see maybe 3% or 4%, right? If it was really doing well. No matter what the underlying did, we would get capped out at around that 3 to 4%. And that's what I've noticed in the past. But recently, when we're seeing these pop-ups, we are also seeing that very similar pop-up with the high yield ETF version. Even the pop-ups on the price, when we have a jump up from one day to the next, like you're seeing right here on 423 to 424, it went from a close of $40.27 up to $45.25 on the close of those 2 days. That is a huge pop-up for that high yield ETF. And of course, if we look at it on AMD, you'll see there it is, same kind of pop-up. So we're seeing these high yield ETFs move very closely to that underlying. Now, before we would always see it move really close to that underlying moving down, right? It had no problem following it down, but it would not or could not capture all of that move up. And we're seeing some of these pop-ups. As you can see right here is another one on AMD from 5.5 to 5.6. So that's May 5th to May 6th. And if we look at AMD, there it is right there, May 5th to May 6th. Look at this price difference. We got a close of 45.24 and then a close of 52.41. And that is just over that 1 day. Now, before, we would not see anything like that. What would happen, in my opinion, in the past, if we had AMD right here and it did this pop right here overnight, then you would take a look at AMD right here and that pop-up would not exist, right? It would actually be here, right, for the day before, and that day after on AMD when it popped up, then you would see AMD maybe move up to right in here, right? It would just move up a little bit and it might move up during the day. And if we had a move like we had on this day, where we're showing that 11.4% move, we would not see 11.4 or anything close to it. We would see more like a 4% move. And instead, we're seeing a move right here of 9.5%. That is a huge difference from what it used to be. We are now capturing more of that move up, which helps to keep from this eroding, right? Because if we can capture that move up with the price, that helps that erosion. And the reason these would erode is because it would take that full side down, right? It would take that full move down. But if it did a V shape on the underlying, then that high yield ETF ticker would not do the same, right? It would only move up a little bit. And then if you had another pullback the next day, it takes that full drop back down. So you continually stair step downward, right? Even though you move up, you would move down the full amount, but you would only move up maybe 3%, 4%. We would not see a 9% move on these high yield ETFs. So looks like YieldMax might be getting their stuff together, right? Looks like they are trying their best to capture that move in the price of the underlying. We would not see anything like this before, so I am super excited. And for another example, let's take a look at everybody's favorite, MSTY. And here we are on MSTY. And you can see right now, it seems to be kind of just trading sideways, right? Staying within a range, basically. But overall, it is trending upward, right? Because if we draw a line right here, just like that right there, you can see we are indeed trending upward since about the 1st of April. And what are we doing with MSTR? The same thing, trending upward. But of course, what moves both of these? We have Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, since April, has been trending upward as well. Now, we had some of these lines drawn in here, and we had some resistance lines. And as you can see, we have been breaking some resistance lines. And that is what we want to see, right? We ended up getting above that 77.7 and eventually got above the 79.5, came down, and look at that. It tested it right there. And I can zoom on in for the people in the back right there. Tested it, and popped up, right? And then that day here, we actually broke down and closed below it. But what did we do today? We shot right back above it, right? So there was some buyers down here waiting, and they pushed it right back up. It would be great if we can still use this 79.5 as a good support line. And currently we're at the 81.4, so I like that. Now the next line that we would be looking for a resistance of is about 84.2. So this one here, we could see this starting to move back up and get up to this 84.2 to where we will hit another resistance. The question is are we going to make it past it, or are we going to get rejected? Now, let's take a look to see how strong that one is. So let's zoom out, right? And look at this. This 84.2, that's a very strong resistance line because it was a very strong support line back here. So what is a good, strong support line? Once it breaks down below it, becomes a very strong resistance line. So this 84.2 will be something to keep an eye on. If we can get above that 84.2, then we can start moving this thing back on up. And of course, if this thing's going to move up, then we would love to see MSTY to continue to move up on this little trend that it has been on since April. And of course, if this moves up, we all know MSTY is going to move up as well. So all of that is very exciting, right? It's all very exciting. Now let's just quickly go through a few of the other ones just to show what the other ones are doing. Here's CONY. CONY looks like it's trading sideways currently, and I am looking for a buy point, right? And I'm looking and waiting for that RSI2 here to drop below that 10, and then I'm going to purchase some shares of CONY. And the same with WDTE right here. You can see WDTE, we are down around this area, and it would be good if it can get back down to around that 26, hit that point. That should drop that RSI2 down to where I can purchase some shares and then I wouldn't mind it taking off, right? That would be perfect. Here's NVDY, and we just took a look at that one already, but look at this. This thing has just been moving up, up, and up. Just today alone, we hit 3.3%. Now, one thing I do want to bring to your attention is, for example, here on NVDY, today was the X date, okay? So for NVDY, it paid out 15 cents, okay? So that amount comes out of the price of the stock. So we'll get that distribution paid out to us, and that price of the stock should drop that amount. Well, it does, but it recovered, right? And it moved up. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of these high yield ETFs recently. I mean, take a look at AMDY. We've already looked at AMDY, but we did not take a look at that distribution. And look at this, $1.09 on that distribution. So it dropped that $1.09, and instead of to continue moving down, it'll pay out that distribution, and it's moving up. So we are indeed recouping that price drop after the stock drops from that distribution. Here's YieldMax, same thing. X date was today, paid out 43 cents, and what'd we do? We moved up 2.18% or 61 cents just today alone. So that more than covers that 43 cent payout drop in the price. But the fact that we get paid that 43 cents and it moved up today is just a win-win situation. For ULTY, it's another one that's kind of just been trading sideways for a little while, right? But that's okay for these high yield ETFs. If it wants to trade sideways and still pay me out a distribution, in this case of 40 cents, I'm okay with that. 100% okay, right? Now, I want it to move up, of course, but as long as it's going to pay me a distribution, and if it wants to stay flat, I'm okay. Let it be. And last we're looking at here is YMAX, and once again, we get paid that distribution. Now, it's a small distribution for YMAX. It's only 9 cents, but it did come out of that price. But what did it do today? Recovered and blew right past and ended up closing at 862. So I'm telling you, these high yield ETFs with YieldMax has definitely changed. They are able to capture that upside of the underlying instead of only capturing that downward movement of the underlying and only a small percentage of that move up. Here lately, it has been able to capture a lot more of that upward movement of the underlying. And of course, that is exactly what we want to see, right? We want it to at least recoup that distribution drop in that price and trade sideways or trade up. But if it can just trade sideways, pay us out a distribution, that would be awesome. But if it's going to move up like it is in AMDY and still pay out 94 cents, 91 cents, $1.09 per week, oh yeah, I am not going to hate that at all because that is getting our cake and eating it too, right? But in my opinion, this here is exactly what we've been waiting for these YieldMax ETFs. We've been waiting for them to continue to pay out those distributions and capture that move up in the underlying instead of the underlying moving up and the YieldMax ETF moving up slightly to trading sideways while the underlying is taken off, right? And then when it has a pullback, then the high yield ETF pulls back. So you always stair step down. At least that's the way it used to be. But I'm telling you, things have changed. At least that's what it looks like to me. So let's take a quick look at my high yield stock tracker sheet. And here we are. As you can see, my gains are at $24,496 at the current moment. And the ones that I'm down on are CONY and YieldMax, and that's it, right? Everything else is green, right? So all those people telling me that I'm going to lose all my money, well, nothing is guaranteed, but so far I'm doing pretty good. as I'm showing roughly a $24,000 gain, right? If I were to sell out of all of these ETFs. Not a loss, but a gain. So if you'd like to get a copy of this spreadsheet so that you can track your own high yield ETFs, find out where you currently sit in each one that you do own, and to find out if you're actually green in that position or are you actually red in that position? Otherwise, are you at a loss or actually at a gain if you were to sell out of that high yield ETF? It helps to also determine when to buy and when not to buy some more shares. I had to get on here real quick, go over those because this journey is something I wanted to share as I'm seeing some nice moves up on these high yield ETFs. And I'm only waiting on CONY and YieldMax to drop down a little bit more so I can purchase some more shares, and then in hopes that they start moving back up as well. But if they don't, then let them take off. I'm okay with that as well. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.